Imagine stepping through the ruined iron-wrought gates of this burning monastery.
Hmm.
The air is so thick with the smell of coppery, rotting flesh that you can actually, like, taste it in the back of your throat.
That is just a horrible image.
Right. Shadows are actively trying to kill you, the architecture itself seems to be breathing, and your own father is standing at the center of a vortex of corpses waiting to tear your mind apart.
Yeah, that is a lot to process for any character.
It is.
Yeah.
And while you are confronting this absolute nightmare trying to save the fabric of reality, your best friends sitting next to you at the table are cheerfully passing a joint, laughing about a misplaced 20-sided die, and just completely forgetting whose turn it is in the initiative order.
It's just the ultimate cognitive dissonance of the tabletop role-playing experience.
Yeah.
I mean, you have these staggering apocalyptic stakes happening entirely within the theater of the mind, but they're anchored to a physical table where people are just being human.
Exactly.
They're making dad jokes. They're trying to remember what their character's spells even do.
Yeah, and that is exactly what we are sinking our teeth into today on the deep dive. Welcome, by the way, to you listening. We are looking at a masterclass in collaborative storytelling. We've got 6 intense chapters, 6 full actual play sessions of a campaign called Vengeance of the Shunned, Recovering the Chronicle.
It is a massive arc.
It really is. We are going to track the escalating dread of this party from the bloody aftermath of a town called Meerbrook all the way to a deeply personal, horrifying confrontation inside this corrupted monastery.
And we're going to look at this through the lens of impartial, lore-focused historians.
Yeah.
Because, when you look at a tabletop game, it's very easy to just see the surface mechanics, the aura classes, the hit points, the +5s to hit.
The math, basically.
Right, the math. But if you look deeper, you find an incredibly dark, escalating tragedy here. I mean, we're talking about a corrupted patriarch, cosmic deception, and a world where the very environment is hostile to the player's existence.
But we have to establish something right out of the gate for you listening. The players driving this narrative, they deserve immense, standing ovation levels of praise.
Oh, without it.
These are lifelong friends. By their own cheerful admission, they are older, they are highly forgetful, and they are consuming plenty of cannabis during these sessions.
Which leads to some amazing table dynamics.
It really does. Yet, despite the haze of smoke and the constant out-of-character levity, they fully commit to tackling some of the heaviest, most emotional, and horrific themes you can throw at a group. They do not shy away from the darkness.
They really lean into it. And to understand the depths this party sinks to over these 6 sessions, we have to first examine the horrifying stage they walked onto.
Set the scene for us.
Well, the transition from the tragedy they experienced at Meerbrook to their arrival at the monastery, it's a masterclass in atmospheric shifting. They aren't just moving from point A to point B.
Right, they are descending into a different genre entirely.
Exactly. It shifts from dark fantasy into pure gothic horror.
Let's unpack that gothic stage. Because the world building here is viscerally upsetting. They approach this fortress of the blood cult, and the first thing they see are bodies literally staked up along the perimeter.
Yeah, a classic warning sign.
But it gets worse. The Game Master notes that the humidity in the air is actually rising because of the sheer volume of exposed blood evaporating into the atmosphere. The smell is that overwhelming, coppery, rotten meat scent. But here is the detail that absolutely made my skin crawl.
What's that?
There is very little blood actually on the ground.
Oh, right. It's a terrifying absence of evidence. I mean, the characters are looking at a massacre, expecting the ground to be slick with gore, but the blood has been meticulously, almost surgically scraped up.
Which implies something much worse than a battle.
Exactly. It tells the characters and forces the players to realize that this carnage isn't just the chaotic byproduct of a fight. This is a harvest.
The blood is being collected for a massive ritual. You can feel the tension spike at the table when that detail drops. And the physical environment immediately mirrors this escalating organized danger.
Yeah, they can't just stroll in.
Right. The party's first tactical milestone in this 6-session arc is simply bypassing the front doors of the monastery. But the architecture is vertical, it's jagged, the surrounding outbuildings are on fire, and it's just physically imposing.
And they aren't exactly facing regular guards.
No, they have heavily mutated aberration clerics guarding the battered doors and a sorcerer positioned 30 feet up in the air behind battlements, just raining spells down on them.
Which brings us to their initial tactical response. If you analyze a seasoned, well-oiled tactical unit facing an elevated threat and heavily armored guards, they would naturally rely on ranged magic, right?
Or crowd control spells.
Exactly. Or perhaps magical flight to level the playing field. Instead, this party's coordination in this first encounter is remarkably, almost painfully clumsy.
It's so bad.
They default to desperate, awkward physical maneuvers.
The image of Max here is just perfect. For context, Max is a 6'5" paladin of Corellon. He is wearing a massive magical breastplate, carrying a heavy shield, a long sword, a backpack stuffed full of gold, and for some reason, owl food for his pet snow owl.
As one does.
Yeah, naturally. And faced with a sorcerer 30 feet up, Max decides his best course of action is to physically free climb the monastery wall.
Mechanically in the game, he tries to argue to the game master that he can use an athletics or acrobatics check to heave all of this heavy metal armor up a janky brink door hinge to reach the battlement.
Which makes no physical sense.
None at all. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of his character's physical limitations versus the game's physics. Predictably, he rolls poorly and gets stuck halfway up.
Just dangling there.
Yeah, dangling 20 feet in the air, clinging to a jagged piece of metal while taking fire from the sorcerer.
And while Max is straining every muscle trying to be a heavily armored Spider-Man, the players out of character are completely disorganized. They're bickering lovingly. One of them realizes it's his turn and says, "Oh, wait, I left my dice in my other pants."
Which is such a classic table moment.
It is. Another player is actively giving a review of the cannabis they're smoking, noting, "Tastes pretty good, gives me stone, too."
It's pure chaos.
But, it's a chaos that serves the narrative beautifully. If we connect this out-of-character confusion to the in-game reality, it creates a fascinating synthesis.
But wait, I have to push back on that. Is it really a narrative choice, or is it just a group of casual tourists accidentally wandering into a live meat grinder because they forgot how their character sheets work? I mean, Max forgetting he has spells that can handle this, and just trying to scramble up a wall feels less like character acting and more like pure, unadulterated player panic.
Well, it's the blurred line between player and character that makes the medium so unique. I mean, think about what these characters have just been through.
Okay. They've been marching all night away from a ruined town. They arrive at a fortress smelling of burnt blood, and they are instantly ambushed from the high ground. Panic is the most logical, authentic response.
So the mechanics reflect the mindset.
Exactly. Their clumsy reliance on physical maneuvers over elegant spellcasting perfectly mirrors their vulnerability. They are terrified mortals trying to breach a fortress of madness, and the player's own discombobulation translates into this authentic, messy breach.
Okay, that makes sense. The tactical clumsiness is a byproduct of the overwhelming atmosphere, but the panic outside the monastery, that is a walk in the park compared to the psychological horror waiting for them inside the sanctuary.
Oh, absolutely.
Because once they break through those doors, they find the true source of the scraped-up blood, and the story shifts into a grim journey of profound moral decay.
The environmental storytelling really reaches its zenith inside the sanctuary. The architecture is no longer just a backdrop or a tactical obstacle. It becomes a hostile, living adversary.
The game master describes pools of pregnant, undulating goo on the floor.
Which is just vile.
It is. And there are slushy piles of reconstituted people scattered across the sanctuary. Reconstituted people. Just thinking about the mechanics of how a person becomes slushy and reconstituted is awful.
It's nightmare fuel. And it gets worse. In the center of the room is a massive swirling pit, a literal vortex of decaying bodies that is actively sucking all that harvested blood down into an abyss beneath the monastery.
Just a swirling drain of gore.
Right. And this environment acts as a massive, grotesque mirror for the internal, rotting struggles of the characters, specifically the twin brothers in the party, Max and Brodus.
Because the person orchestrating this nightmare, the architect standing at the center of the bleeding vortex overseeing a magical tome called the Chronicle, is Father Elliot, the Warlock of Truth.
Exactly.
And Elliot is their father. This isn't just a boss fight against a random evil wizard, it's patricide. This is where the campaign elevates from a standard fantasy adventure into a dark Greek tragedy.
It really does. Elliot is not a mustache-twirling, one-dimensional villain. If we examine his history, he is a deeply tragic figure. Years ago, during an expedition in a region called the Devil's March, Elliot fell into a swamp and nearly died.
And that changed him.
Completely. When he emerged, he was fundamentally changed. He had a vision, a connection to a patron, a cosmic entity he calls Osun.
And that connection drove him completely mad. It led him to literally burn down his own family home, with his family inside in the name of this dark patron. Brodus, who is a hexblade warlock, meaning his own magic is intrinsically tied to dark patron energy, and Max, the righteous paladin, survived the fire.
But that trauma defined their entire lives.
Totally. Now, decades later, they have to face the man who broke them. The dialogue in this scene is absolutely chilling. Elliot looks at his fully grown, heavily armed sons, and he just coldly states, "I have no sons, you betrayed me."
What makes Elliot so terrifying as an antagonist is his absolute unwavering conviction. I mean, here is the warlock of truth. In his warped mind, he believes every single word he is saying is a fundamental reality.
He doesn't think he's the bad guy.
Not at all. When Max tries to use his divine presence, his paladin aura, to intimidate Elliot, his father just sneers at him and says, "Spare me the theatrics, paladin." He completely dismisses the very core of his son's identity.
And Max's response is so heartbreaking. Max is normally the loud, boisterous, self-righteous tank of the group, but here his voice cracks. He delivers this desperate, tragic plea, "Your selfishness has corrupted us enough." You can hear the decades of therapy he never got in that one line.
It's incredible role-playing.
But here's where things get philosophically murky for me. We find out from a lore perspective that Elliot was actually dosed with a reality-warping serum, a concoction of arcane and titanic blood magic that essentially forced his mind open so this patron, Osin, could speak to him and corrupt him.
Right, the serum was the catalyst.
So if his brain was chemically and magically hijacked by an outside force, is Elliot truly the villain here, or is he just patient zero, the first victim of a cosmic parasite?
That is the core tragedy the players have to wrestle with. Elliot is undeniably a victim. His paranoia, his violent dissent, it was all seeded by this serum, which allowed the corruption of the far realm to take root inside his mind.
He literally has a physical manifestation of it, right?
Yeah, he physically has a point of corruption growing within his chest. The players figure this out. They understand that the father they loved was hollowed out and weaponized by a cosmic force.
But understanding that he's a victim doesn't turn off the vortex of corpses. It doesn't stop him from trying to kill them. It just means the violence they are forced to inflict upon him carries this massive, unbearable weight of guilt.
And that profound emotional devastation completely shatters the party's tactical cohesion. Faced with the reality of their corrupted father, their plans just dissolve. We see this transition into absolute dread, mechanically represented in the combat that follows.
Because Elliot isn't just swinging a sword.
No, Elliot doesn't just swing a sword, he unleashes psychological warfare.
He starts casting magical fear and insanity bolts. And this is where we see how tactical errors on a grid directly influence a dire narrative outcome. When the party entered the massive sanctuary, their instinct was to group up, stay close, present a united front, protect each other.
Which is usually smart.
Usually, yeah. But against a spellcaster using area of effect fear magic, grouping up is a fatal mistake.
By clustering together, they get caught in the blast radius of this cascading wave of screaming shadows. And we must remember, in the mechanics of this game system, fear isn't just a suggestion for roleplay.
Oh no, it's brutal.
The frightened condition is a brutal mechanical penalty. A frightened character has disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, while the source of its fear is within line of sight, and crucially, they cannot willingly move closer to the source of their fear.
It literally paralyzes their offensive capabilities. These mighty heroes are forced to cower. Max, the towering, heavily armored paladin, ends up failing his saving throw and is mechanically forced to be frightened and prone.
The irony is so thick.
Right, he is literally taking cover behind a stone pillar, shivering on the ground, unable to step out and face his father. The dread is palpable.
The tactical breakdown here is fascinating to analyze. We see a stark contrast in how the different characters desperately try to contribute while paralyzed by fear. Will, for instance, plays a character named Mr. Fairweather, who is a 60-year-old ex-butler and a pure melee brawler. He punches things.
Right.
But because of the fear mechanics, he cannot physically walk up to Elliot to punch him.
So what does a brawler do when he can't brawl? He panics. Mr. Fairweather, in a moment of sheer desperation, just hurls his wooden quarterstaff across the room at Elliot like a javelin.
Such a desperate move.
And the dice tell the story perfectly. Will rolls a natural 1, a critical failure. The game master describes the staff just whiffing pathetically past Elliot's head, hitting a wall, and boomeranging back across the floor, completely useless.
That's adding insult to injury.
Meanwhile, Max, still pinned behind that pillar, tries to use the command spell, just yelling a single word to force Elliot to drop his massive claymore. It's no longer a coordinated attack. It's a frantic scramble for any survival mechanic that doesn't require getting closer.
And it is here we have to evaluate the effectiveness of the unique player abilities they lean on to survive this onslaught. Because standard tactics are failing, they utilize a heavily homebrewed mechanic they possess called Dimensional Disengage, or sometimes referred to as Rend.
This ability is such a brilliant fusion of deep world-building lore and practical gameplay mechanics. How exactly does this temporal glitch work again?
Well, in the lore of this specific world, the gods fought an ancient war that violently warped the geography and architecture of the material plane.
Okay.
So for the first 3 rounds of any combat encounter, the party can actually see a faint, glowing blueprint of the battlefield as it existed before the gods warped it. It's like a historical echo of the room.
That is so cool.
Right. And once per encounter, a player can tap into this temporal glitch. They can take a dash or disengage action as a bonus action, and visually, their character dissolves into this ancient blueprint, teleporting through the echo of the past to physically move away from danger in the present.
It's like stepping into a ghost of the room's architecture to bypass the physical nightmare currently happening. And when that fear spell hits, you see the characters heavily abusing this mechanic.
They really rely on it here.
They are literally blipping out of reality, fading into the ancient blueprint of the monastery, just to put physical distance between themselves and Elliot's insanity.
It's a phenomenally evocative survival tool. I mean, they are so thoroughly outmatched by Elliot's psychological magic that they have to hide in the seams of time itself just to catch their breath. It perfectly highlights their desperation.
But once again, we have to talk about the player contrast, because it is the only thing keeping this deep dive from being incredibly depressing. While the characters are cowering behind pillars, hiding in time, and dealing with the trauma of patricide, the out-of-character banter around the table is comedy gold.
Oh, it really is.
They are treating these horrifying status effects like they're collecting rings in Sonic the Hedgehog. One player looks at his character sheet, realizes all the penalties he's accumulated, and announces to the table that he is currently naked, prone, and afraid.
And they lovingly bicker over the spelling of basic words while resolving spells, with one player confidently declaring MON spells moon when his spelling is challenged.
Disgusting.
And when Will is trying to justify his natural one on throwing the quarterstaff, he just yells in his character's voice, "I don't punch dice, I'm a goddamn rock."
Like
It is the ultimate release valve for the tension.
It really is. They are confronting the moral decay of their own family, but they are doing it flanked by their best friends. However, that levity at the table doesn't save the characters because their desperate scramble and abuse of the dimensional rend ability only buys them just enough time to hear Elliot's final, world-shattering revelations.
Yes. This is the pivot point of the entire campaign. The story abruptly shifts from a localized, deeply personal family tragedy into a massive, reality-breaking cosmic deception.
The stakes just skyrocket.
Exactly. The party manages to shake off the fear long enough to land a few desperate hits. Elliot is bleeding, he's backed into a corner near the chalice of the Chronicle, and he drops a lore bomb that changes the context of everything they've ever known.
Elliot looks at his sons, and he claims that the gods themselves, the very deities granting the party their magic, are lying to the world. He points upward toward the concept of the sky, and he asks this incredibly haunting question. He says, "Do you think that orb tucked conveniently behind our moon, is a shadow, a twin? Why does Corellon forbid its mention?"
The implications of that statement are just staggering. I mean, Corellon is the primary deity of the elves, and crucially, the specific god that Max the Paladin worships and draws his divine power from.
It's a direct attack on his faith.
Right. Elliot is looking his son in the eye and telling him that his god is the architect of a massive cosmic cover-up regarding a hidden twin moon.
He tells them, if you all knew the truth, the real truth, it would crumble the very foundations of faith itself. Elliot genuinely believes that the gods are actively scrubbing reality, deleting truths from existence just to save themselves from whatever is coming.
He views the party not as heroes, but as blind, ignorant tools of a corrupt divine order.
And returning to the point made earlier, Elliot is the warlock of truth. Out of character, Will's player points this out to the group, cementing the horror. Elliot might be mad, his mind might be warped by a titanic serum, but because of his pact, he genuinely believes everything he is saying is a factual, objective reality.
Exactly. He isn't lying to manipulate them, he's trying to wake them up.
And the most tragic part of this entire sequence, The players don't get to capture him and interrogate him. They don't get answers. The confrontation ends as a bloody, tragic failure.
They are forced to strike him down.
Yeah. Elliot falls to the floor, smoldering from their magic. Max, in a heartbreaking moment of role play, walks over and gently lowers his father's limp body to the ground. But killing the architect doesn't stop the machine.
No, it accelerates it. The death of the patriarch is merely the catalyst the ritual needed. The massive pool of harvested blood crackles with raw, arcane energy.
Oh, boy.
It violently spews hundreds of gallons of chum into the air, coating the ceiling of the sanctuary. And then with a deafening boom, all of that viscera pulls back down into the vortex. The blood turns fetid, rotting into a pitch-black sludge.
Just disgusting.
The endless tunnel of gore begins generating a gravitational pull, sucking in the very architecture of the room. The stone pillars, the loose body parts, the weapons, everything is being consumed.
The heroes are forced to physically run away, scrambling backward as the room itself tries to digest them. And this is the moment when Elder Akala steps into the spotlight.
Okala is such a great character.
He really is. Okala is a beloved NPC, a non-player character controlled by the game master who has been traveling with them. He's an older drow cleric of the Forge.
And Okala's journey during this battle has been uniquely harrowing. Earlier in the fight, during a chaotic exchange of magic, Okala was accidentally sucked into a rogue portal leading to the far realm.
Which is never a place you want to go.
Never. He was gone for a full combat round and returned mentally shattered. He took massive psychic damage, having witnessed horrors beyond mortal comprehension. The game master describes him returning with his hair blown back, crying in a blind rage, looking almost comical, but deeply traumatized, kind of like Gene Wilder in Young Frankenstein.
But when Elliot falls and that vortex turns black, Akala's shattered mind suddenly gains crystal clarity. He realizes that Elliot's blood magic, all of the sacrifices, all the scraped up blood, it was actually failing.
It wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough to stop the entity trying to push through. The Titan-spawn demon, Osum, is arriving. And Okala looks at the party, looks at the vortex, and realizes that conventional weapons and spells are mathematically insufficient to win this fight.
So Okala makes the ultimate choice. He drops to his knees in the bloody dirt, taking a penitent, surrendered pose. And the game master delivers one of the most emotionally crushing, beautifully written monologues you will ever hear at a gaming table. Okala begins to pray to his deity, Corian, the Lord of the Forge.
It gave me goosebumps just reading the transcript. Okala says, "You know my ledger. You remember the red mud of the broad reach. I traded your pure sunlight for the heat of mortal beings. For 20 years I've stolen life from the blood to patch the clay of these innocent folk. I am drow, I'm a broken blade. But look upon these who stand before me. They are the iron you've been waiting to forge."
It's a confession of his own perceived unworthiness. I mean, he believes his soul is stained by the blood magic he's used to heal people over the years.
It's so sad.
He tells his god, "My hands are too dirty to hold your shield, so I offer myself as the fuel. Take the remaining years in my lungs." He is offering his very soul, his existence, to fuel a divine intervention for the party.
Okala is essentially a dying star here. He is deliberately collapsing his own life force to fuel a divine supernova. The light of the Forge bursts from his holy symbol with such intensity that it vaporizes the immediate dark magic in the room.
Okala collapses into the dirt, his eyes glowing completely white, breathing his last breath so the party can live.
It's a breathtaking sacrifice.
But we have to look at the massive narrative dissonance this creates. Let's trace the logic for a second. Elliot just spent his dying breaths claiming the gods were liars, that they were hiding a twin moon, that they are deceiving the mortal realm.
Right.
Literally seconds later, Okala sacrifices his soul to one of those very gods to gain power. Did Okala just martyr himself to an entity that is actively deceiving the world?
That is the haunting question the historian must grapple with. Because mechanically, Okala's god answers the prayer. The magic works.
The numbers go up. The numbers go up, yeah. But narratively, the party is left standing in the ruins of their faith. They have this immense divine power coursing through their veins, but it was granted by a pantheon that their own father died claiming was a fraud.
That is heavy.
It layers a deep sense of moral decay over their newfound strength. I mean, they are suddenly incredibly powerful, but are they empowered by absolute truth, or are they empowered by a cosmic lie?
It's brilliant. It's so messy and brilliant, but the players don't have time to hold a philosophical debate about the nature of divinity because Ocala's self-immolation forces them to instantly shake off their cannabis-induced haze, drop their jokes, and focus. The cosmic horror has fully arrived. It's Demonfall.
The arrival of the Titan-spawned demon Osun fundamentally alters the reality of the battlefield. The environment, which was already hostile and digesting itself, becomes incredibly actively lethal.
It's no longer just flavor text.
Exactly. The Game Master introduces environmental hazards that exponentially increase the sense of danger and force the players to constantly monitor their positioning. The sheer weight of Osun's presence causes the magical architecture of the monastery to buckle, resulting in falling invisible stones crushing down from the ceiling.
Falling invisible stones. If you have ever played a tabletop RPG, you know that positioning is everything. You look at the grid, you find cover, but how do you dodge something you cannot see? It's a mechanic designed to induce paranoia.
Exactly. And on top of that, the floor is now completely coated in black demonic blood that acts as difficult terrain.
Meaning they can only move half as fast.
Right, it halves their movement speed and makes the floor impossibly slick. The Game Master describes a smell of the abyss filling the room, a mixture of rotten mushrooms and unholy rot. The environment itself represents chaos and entropy seeping into the material plane, just trying to suffocate them.
But this is where the 6 sessions of bumbling, the tactical errors, the panicking, it all pays off in this moment of pure tactical redemption. Thanks to Ocala's sacrifice, the party finally clicks into gear. The energy released by Ocala bathes them in what the Game Master calls the Crucible's glow.
It's a massive power spike.
It is. Mechanically, this buff grants them complete immunity to the frightened condition for an hour. No more cowering behind pillars. No more disadvantage. And the first time they hit a demonic creature on each of their turns, they deal an extra 2d6 radiant or fire damage. They are transformed from victims into a coordinated lethal unit against an impossible threat.
We can track the evolution of each character in this final stretch, and it's a masterclass in utilizing varied combat roles and mastering the action economy.
Let's break it down.
Let's look at Bocephus. He is a warlock gunslinger, wearing a black wide-brimmed hat and a duster. Up until now, he's been cautious, staying on the periphery. But with the Crucible's glow, he steps up. He expertly utilizes his rune-covered revolver from a distance, calculating his sightlines to avoid the invisible falling stones, providing consistent, heavy-range damage.
And then you have Daudus, the rogue assassin. He's this 5-foot-tall guy with an eye patch who has been really struggling with the area of effect magic. Now, he utilizes his class-specific cunning actions to dash and disengage as bonus actions.
This is slipping right through that difficult terrain.
Yeah. He is weaving through the treacherous, bloody floor with ease, constantly finding flanking positions to land precision sneak attacks, stacking those fistfuls of 6-sided dice. And we haven't even fully described Xerxos yet.
Oh, Xerxos. Xerxos is perhaps the most visually jarring character. He's a mutated satyr bard, over 200 years old. He has jagged bone spurs protruding from his back, and his entire right arm has been replaced by a writhing mass of 6 mauve tentacles.
It is such a grotesque, beautiful character design. But despite looking like a monster himself, Xerxos is the glue holding the team together. He provides crucial support magic from the backline. He lands vital short bow shots, and the player utilizes his perfect memory of the battlefield to track the chaos, reminding the other players of their buffs and coordinating their strikes.
Meanwhile, the front line is held by the twins, united in grief and divine fire. Brodus, the Hexblade, is wielding a bastard sword that functions like a magical chainsaw. Max, the Paladin, is charging in with his longsword glowing with Corian's light.
They are totally in sync.
They seamlessly communicate. Instead of just wildly swinging at the massive demon, they exhibit tactical discipline. They target the lesser minions first, these gross, mutated, low-level demons called dretches, which they just describe as pig dogs.
This is so descriptive.
They systematically obliterate the minions with radiant fire, clearing the board so they can turn their full, combined action economy onto the terrifying Osun.
They are finally playing the game perfectly. They're calculating the bonus 2d6 radiant damage, they're managing their temporary hit points, and they are maneuvering to give each other advantage on their attack rolls. The clumsiness of the monastery breach climbing, burnt hinges, and throwing sticks is completely gone. They have evolved from frightened, traumatized sons into the very iron that Ocala prayed they would be. They become an anvil.
And yet, through all of this intense, high-level tactical coordination, the perfect player contrast remains intact.
It really does.
In the middle of rolling massive handfuls of dice for extra radiant damage against a cosmic horror, these lifelong friends are still taking those 10-second breathers. They are navigating their own forgetfulness, helping each other remember modifiers, and laughing at the absurdity of it all.
Will is still reminding people he doesn't punch dice.
Right. I don't punch dice.
Yeah.
They are balancing the incredibly grim, gothic weight of patricide, the fresh tragedy of Ocala's sacrifice, and a literal demonic invasion with the pure, joyful, undeniable connection of old friends playing a game around a table. It's a beautiful dichotomy.
It's what makes the medium so special. You can't get the specific type of storytelling from a movie or a book. So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? Why should you care about a game played by a group of forgetful, stoned friends? Because it proves that profound storytelling isn't dependent on perfect execution, polished prose, or a rigid, pre-planned structure. It's about commitment.
Yes.
These players committed entirely to the muddy, traumatic waters of their characters' lives. They embraced the tragedy of a corrupted patriarch. They didn't shy away from the hostile architecture of a rotting world. They generated a breathtaking, emotionally devastating narrative simply by rolling plastic dice, doing silly voices, and refusing to look away from the darkness they built together.
They explored a grim, unforgiving journey of moral decay, and they emerged on the other side of Demonfall, if not victorious, at least resolute. But they are left carrying the deep psychological scars of the encounter. The mechanics of the game fade, but the narrative weight remains.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling thought for you to chew on. We started this deep dive by talking about the comforting, binary nature of a tabletop game, the clean lines of math, success, and failure. But Eliot's dying words shattered that binary machine forever. He claimed the gods are hiding a twin moon and that the Chronicle itself is fundamentally corrupted.
It's a terrifying prospect.
The party defeated the demon, yes. They survived the monastery. But if the gods truly are deceiving the mortal world, did these heroes just save the realm? Or, by striking down the warlock of truth, did they just unknowingly secure the gods' dark, cosmic lie by killing the only man who is actually trying to warn them?
The diagnostic landscape of this story remains, as ever, incredibly murky.
And that's where we'll leave you today. Keep diving.